We're putting a Tesla antenna on the back of this thing. Well, we're back in the shop again, another weekend, getting more done on this Raptor. We've been doing all the work on this thing to get it ready for a trip to Mexico. Owner is going to do a Raptor run trip down in Baja, and he's wanting to get it all set up. The front bumper is just about buttoned up. This is what we're going to try to tackle today. Adaptive cruise. Last video, if you watched it, I had another Raptor in here, which was the old Raptor that we did this bumper on. And I was able to figure out where the adaptive cruise went. After I did that video, I also got the instructions from Evil Manufacturing on how to mount their adaptive cruise, which shows pictures. So, yeah, Boss Man sent me those the day after I posted that video. So talk about timing. I got all the info I need to do this Raptor today. The main goal is to get the front end buttoned up. So these lights are mounted. These lights are mounted, but they are not wired. To our race series, they're high and low. They've got the wide patterns on the outsides. The front middle ones are just spots, I believe. So they're spots with backlights. So the outer ones have a three-way switch, a high, an off, and a low. So we need to wire those up to a three-way switch. I was going to wire them up to the factory auxiliaries, but he would rather have them separate than all the other stuff. So we are going to use the Baja Designs wiring harnesses that came with the lights, which will make it a lot easier. We'll get all the lights buttoned up on this thing. We'll get the adaptive cruise on there. We'll get pretty much the wiring done on this front grille and this front bumper. Then, if I have time, he got an interior dash mount system. He's got an iPad mount in here. He's got a phone mount in here. He's got a bunch of mounts. That actually goes up on top of the dash. Let's see here. It goes in this area apparently, so it bolts in there, and then it'll have a spot for his iPad, which he'll be running GPS and stuff off of, his phone mount, and we're going to move the mic mount for his radio, which is mounted in here. We're going to move the mic mount from down here up to here, so it'll be easier for him to grab onto. So hopefully if I get the front end done, I can get to that. That's the goal. Front bumper done. Wiring done. Adaptive cruise bracket done. And that would be awesome for today. It's a lot of work, but we'll see how far we can get. There are a ton of other things that this thing gets before Baja, but I am going to have to break it up into other videos because there's just not enough time in the day, and I'm a one man crew here, so I can only get so much done. So, but let me think about what all this thing's getting. Oh, almost forgot. We added some stuff on the back. I didn't get to video it. Made these mounts back here. They just bolt up to the factory tie down point, and they go up, and it's just a piece of tube, and the light mounts directly to it, and then the wire runs behind the bed rug. Don't ask me about the bed rug, it was there. These are dust lights. Basically, they're going to shine backwards. That way, when they're down and they got 20 trucks in a line and they're all kicking up dust, you can actually see the person in front of you, because it can get blinding if you're too close or it's way too dry. Those help with visibility a lot. He has these ones right there. He's got some down in the bumper, but they're just too low for you to see them. So we wanted to get something higher. He also has some amber A-series lights mounted up there, but they kick out at an angle. So when you're standing kind of over here, they're really bright, but when you're directly behind them, they're kind of dull. So he wanted something a little bit easier and more in your face, and they are bright. So we did that last week. We've got to do an ARB fridge mount in this thing still. There's a couple little things, but the main job is the front lighting and getting the front grill all done. And that's what we're going to do today. So we'll see how far we can get on the front end, hopefully get it buttoned up, and we'll go from there. I also completely forgot, I did take a video on putting all those Baja design lights on and putting the methods on, but I'm new to this. This is the new GoPro, and I haven't had one since they were like 4, and now we're up to what, 20 something. I was playing around with the settings on a video and totally forgot I left it on the hyperview setting. And so when we went to edit the video that we made with the Baja design lights and the methods, I did not even know that the entire video was in hyperview. We went to edit that and we went cross-eyed. So I'm gonna keep the video, maybe snippet some in, but it gives you a headache watching it, and I just wasn't gonna use it. So it was a fun video, but there will be plenty more videos to be made. So but yeah, we drilled all the holes for all those lights. We mounted the methods and the new tires because the stock wheels and tires hit those reservoirs, so we had to go with these wheels. That was pretty much all that video was. So it was fun, still was a fun video, and I'm kind of bummed we didn't get to use it, but it gave us a headache trying to edit it, and it was tough to watch, so it wasn't usable. So, but got the grill off. So this adaptive cruise brackets, you have to have the factory. That was the key. That was the trick. Was you have to have the factory mounting bracket for this adaptive cruise. This bracket sits in here, something like that, and then it sits underneath. Hang on. Sits underneath, bolts to this, and then this. It's like that, right? No. Anyway, this bracket bolts in this area, and this bolts in this area. Easy. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, so I'm going to just get after it, start drilling the holes in this thing, and it mounts really easy, but it's just a complicated factory bracket with a very simple bracket to mount it with. So
right,
I'm going to get that mounted real quick. We can get all this wiring tied up real nice on this grill. What I'm going to do is, before I put the grill back on, I'm going to get those Baja design lights back on this bumper, put them on there, run the wire all nice and neat. There was a little gap between the grill and the bumper. Run the wires all nice and neat up to each light, and then that way they can go up into the cab, and the wiring can go up to where he wants the switches mounted. So adaptive cruise, wiring, get it done. That's it. So we'll see how far I get on this. All right, that is the Evil manufacturing bracket. That is the factory bumper bracket. That's the factory adaptive cruise. And that is it mounted in the grill. It's exciting. I am so glad to have that part done. It's right behind the D on the Ford.
Man, Ford country.
if you didn't know what kind of vehicle it was. That should work right there. Now I just have to get all the wiring buttoned up on this grill.
5 minutes later.
Got the grill, the wire all tucked up as best as I can. You have to have all these shutter motors attached, otherwise you'll have a check engine light. The adaptive cruise is mounted. That was ridiculously simple, and I'm surprised that I didn't figure that out, but whatever. Instructions helped, believe it or not. And if they were included, I would have had that mounted a long time ago. But it is what it is. It's mounted now. The cruise is mounted, sensors are mounted, shutter motors are zipped up. I've got these two signal wires. On these Gen 3 Raptors, the factory bumper has two factory mounted lights. One is hooked up to the factory fog light switch, and the other one is actually hooked up to auxiliary 1. So up here in the engine bay where the auxiliary switch signal wires come out, number 1 is missing. You only have 5 out of the 6 switches. That's because number 1 goes down to the factory bumper. So if you ever want to hook anything up to number 1, easiest thing to do is just to tag off of the factory plug on the bumper. So what I ended up doing was, I knew one was fog light and one was switch 1. I do not know which one we're going to use for those lower lights. Plus, I don't want to pull this whole grill back off to tag into one or the other. So I just ran both. That way I can add whatever I want later on. So those are tagged in. Now I just have to put this grill back on the truck, feed these Baja design light pigtails through the grill, probably wherever it lines up. So I'm going to feed those through and then start working that harness up where I need it and hooking everything else up. Got the grill on, got the lights on, got the wire for the lights ran. Before I button up this fender flare, I need to snag and tag, probably tag this side over here, this marker light, because these Baja designs do have a backlight and they have a signal wire. So I need to tag that, and then I can put the fender flares back on, and then it's just this massive bundle of wires up in the hood here. Look at that ugly mess. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with all that. So the switches are bulkier than I planned, so I've got to make sure that those fit somewhere. And yeah, just working on wiring. I think I'm actually going to weld those tabs on for the lower lights real quick, because that sounds a lot more fun than wiring. We'll do anything but wiring. It's not that I can't do it. It's just I don't like doing it. It's not a very fun job. So I'm gonna get the lower lights mounted and wired, and then figure out how to get all of this jazz up here in this corner to look good. So that's it. We'll keep rolling. We're taking a break from outside right now, mainly because I need to figure out where these switches for the front bumper lights are going to go. They're really bulky switches for just a 3-way switch, but this is what Baja Designs supplies, and it is all heat shrunk in there. So I've got to figure out how to get this through the firewall and inside the cab. They don't make it very easy. That's a big switch. So I've got to figure out where we're gonna mount those before I get too crazy routing wires, because I'm limited on how long they can be. Well, I don't want to come apart. So we were talking about here, which I do not believe there's gonna be any room there. The other spot was in this area, having the 2 toggles. I don't know if I'm going to have enough room, and with the throw, And then worst case scenario, they go down here. There is enough room back here, but that's just way out of the way when you need to use them. So, but other than that, these trucks don't have any good space. We'll work on the interior. We'll take a break on the boring wiring part on the outside, and we'll see what we can figure out inside here. I got the dash piece mounted. That's a pretty slick deal. So you can actually mount that bracket 3 ways. You can mount it kind of temporary and just do double-sided tape that's on the brackets itself. You can put screws through and use a double-sided tape and some just really small screws. And you can also do a more permanent mount where you take the panel off, and they supply big fender washers with locking nuts. Since he's going to Baja, I chose to do the more permanent mount with the bolts and the nylon nuts. So that required taking it a little bit apart to pull this grate off. It's just clipped on. Then there's 2 screws underneath, 2 7mm screws underneath. And the lower panel, which is, you can see there's a seam here. This is part of the lower panel, so you have to pop this back. And that's just all clipped on once you pull the 2 7mm screws out. And then that whole piece comes off. And this piece is cut pretty good to where it sits really nice. I don't think that spot's going to be good for switches because there's really no way to bring, I'm sure there is, but no easy way to run the harnesses up for these 2 little doodads here. So I went to the first original spot was this area right here, and it's actually really easy to pop this panel off, and it's a pretty big void under there, but this panel has a little step in it, I guess for reinforcement, and so it doesn't just flex inward. But I could modify that. That's a question for him. There's an option for switches. Again, I'm gonna need his approval before I go drilling a big hole or 2 big holes in his dash. So I will leave this panel off in the meantime. Dash bracket brand is tack form. I thought I saw something. It looks like you can buy it on Amazon. So I will have to ask him and see if he picked it up on Amazon and if he can send me the link, and I can post the link in the description on this bracket piece because it's pretty slick. I will see how he wants to mount everything. It looks like everything's just held down with Phillips screws to make it pretty universal mounting. So we will get it all figured out and get that part done. So not much more I can do on the interior here. I just need to figure out the switch location, pass that through. So what I'm gonna do is finish some wiring up under the dash, because that's a fun job, and get this wire ran. If this, I have a feeling this center console is gonna work. So if that's the case, I know exactly where I'm gonna punch through, and we'll just tie into the harness right there. So that'll be pretty straightforward. Got about as much as I can get done today. The grill is on there for realsies this time. Adaptive cruise mounted, sensors mounted, all the factory wiring tied up out of the way. The wiring for these are down, routed up. I just got to make connections once I figure out where the switch is going to be. These little lights down here mounted, touched up. I just gotta wait and figure out if he wants it on switch number 1 or the factory fog lights, but that's just a quick little easy plug in. Got the cell phone and tablet mount on the dash done. Gotta let him know how he wants it all set up, what mount goes where. I'll kind of let him figure that out, and then I'll make the microphone mount work. That's about all I got done today. Not as much as I wanted to get done, but that's just how it goes. Hopefully the next video will probably be me making a ARB fridge mount. There is a fridge that he is wanting back here, so I'm gonna make a little mount that bolts to the seat frame and the floor, going to factory holes. That way it can be quickly installed and removed. So that'll probably be the next video. I'm trying to think what all is left on this thing before it has to go. Finish up the wiring on this. I'm gonna redo the wiring on the rear lights. It was a mess. I didn't know what was what, so I gutted it. We start from scratch. Best way to do it. So we've got front bumper. We have to go through all the suspension and make sure everything's tight and torqued and marked, and go over that. Fridge mount. We are actually going to try to put a Skylink on this thing. Skylink? Starlink? Whatever the fancy satellite Elon Musk stuff is. We're putting a Tesla antenna on the back of this thing. Starlink, fridge, suspension, and lights. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's as much as I get done today. So hopefully I can get some videos during the week after hours. If not, it will be, yeah, I'm gonna have to, because we're going camping next weekend. So, but I'll get some more progress done on this thing when I can, and I will video it. That way I can document what we're doing. So, and that way if you're planning a trip to Baja, you too can do all this unnecessary, ridiculously cool stuff to your Raptor. So we'll see you later.